Hello there, I hope you guys are doing well. Today's a great day to be a cougar, and today we will be learning about vertical angles theorem. Today's lesson objective is I will learn about the vertical angles theorem and use the theorem to prove that two vertical angles are congruent. Why do we use proofs? Proofs are ways to show that statements are true or valid. Proofs confirm how and why geometry helps explain our world and how it works. The vertical angles theorem states that vertical angles, angles that are opposite to each other and formed by two intersecting lines, are congruent. Let's review some vocabulary. Linear pair, two angles whose sum equals 180 degrees. Together, the pair of angles form a straight line. So to the right, you guys can see we have two intersecting lines, two lines that cross, line M and line K. Now, pair of angles 7 and 10, that's our first linear pair right here, and they fall on line M. The next set of linear pair is 7 and 8, and 7 and 8 fall on line K. Next, we have 8 and 9. So angles 8 and 9 form a linear pair, and they fall on line M. And last, we have 9 and 10, and 9 and 10 form a linear pair and fall on line K. Vertical angles, angles opposite to each other when two lines cross. They're always equal. I like to refer as my kissing fish. So, for example, angles 7 and 9. We have 7 is here, 9 is here. They're vertical angles. Now, how I see the kissing fish is right here is the mouth. Now, here's my first fish, angle 7. Here's my second fish, angle 9. And 7 and 9, the angles are congruent. So let's move on to the second set of vertical angles, which would be 8 and 10. And once again, here's my mouth, and here's fish number 8, or angle number 8, and here is fish. Let's look at some other vocabulary we learned. The definition of congruent angles. If two angles are congruent, then their measures are equal. For example, angle A is congruent to angle B. So the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B. We will also be using the subtraction property of equality, which states that when both sides of an equation have the same quantity subtracted from them, the remaining expressions are still equal. For example, if you subtract the same number from both the sides of an equation, the two sides remain equal. So A minus C equals B minus C, so therefore then A is equal to B. The next vocabulary word that we will be using to prove is substitution property of equality. If the values of two quantities are equal, you can replace the value of one quantity with each other. So for example, the best example I can give you that you guys would understand is money. So when you have $1, you can have 10 dimes, which is equivalent to 20 nickels, which is equivalent to 100 pennies. So when you have $20, you can have one $20 bill, you can have two $10 bills, or you can have four $5 bills, which is equivalent to 20 $1 bills. So the combinations that you can make are infinite, but that gives you an idea of what that property means. So steps to follow. In order to prove that the two vertical angles are congruent, first begin with two pairs of angles that form a linear pair. Next, write two equations showing that the pair of angles sum up to 180 degrees. Then use the substitution property of equality to set the equations equal to each other. Last, use the subtraction property of equality and or definition of congruent angles to complete the proof. So there you might be using both or just one. So let's begin. Let's give one a try. So here we have two intersecting lines right here. Let's see what is given. Line K intersects line M. We have to prove that angle 7 is congruent to angle 9. So here's my proof. I went ahead and displayed it all. That way we can talk about each section. So first we have to have two columns, the statement column and the reason column. And in the statement column, we basically write what we're stating, what we think is true. And then to the right in the reasons column, this is how we prove that it's true, how it's valid. So let's start off and let's look at statement 1. Line K intersects line M. Though that was given, so that's what I wrote for my reason. Okay, so then in statement 2, I followed my steps. So what I did is identified a pair of linear pairs. So then I said angle 7 and angle 8 form a linear pair. And then I said angle 8 and angle 9 form a linear pair. And if we look at our intersecting lines, 7 and 8 do form a linear pair, and so does 8 and 9. Let's move on, and I went ahead and I explained my reason, and I've just wrote definition of linear pairs. So for statement 3, I went ahead and did step 2. I wrote 2 equations to show the pairs of angles sum to 180 degrees. So I used the measure of angle 7 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180 degrees. The measure of angle 8 plus the measure of angle 9 equals 180 degrees. And the reason being is angles that form a linear pair sum up to 180 degrees. Statement 4. Measure of angle 7 plus the measure of angle 8 is equivalent or equal to the measure of angle 8 plus the measure of angle 9. And I use the substitution property of equality to validate it. Statement 6. I said that the measure of angle 7 is equal to the measure of angle 9. And that is true by the subtraction property of equality. I went ahead and subtracted the measure of angle 8 here, and then I subtracted the measure of angle 9 here, and that gave me statement 5. And then I can move on to my final statement to complete my proof, which is statement 6. The angle 7 is congruent to angle 9. Why and by the definition of congruent angles, and I am ready for my next example. So my next example, we're given that line W intersects line X, which is true. If we look here to the right, line W intersects line X. So we have to prove that angle 6 is congruent to angle 7. And what I did here was very nice. I gave you the statements, and so now we have to validate, and we have to give the reasons why. Now, if you have a question and don't remember why I use this, just feel free to refer back to my steps up here. So for line 1, or statement 1, line W intersects line X. That was given, so that's my reason. Okay? For statement 2, definition of linear pairs. So that lets me know that 6 and 8 are a linear pair and 7 and 8 are a linear pair. Number 3, I used angles that form a linear pair sum up to 180 degrees, and we know that is true. And then for statement 4, substitution property of equality. So basically all I said was the measure of angle 6 plus the measure of angle 8 is equal to measure of angle 7 plus the measure. And then for statement number 5, my reason was the subtraction property of equality, which basically I subtracted the measure of angle 8 and I subtracted the measure of angle 8 from here, from both sides, and left me with the measure of angle 6 is equal to the measure of angle 7, and takes me to my last statement, which is the angle 6 is congruent to angle 7, and that is true by the definition of congruent angles. Now it is your turn to try problem 1. I want you to pause the video. I want you to take a look at it. I made it very easy, or not as difficult. I did fill in some of the blanks. You just have to fill in the remaining. When you have finished or you're ready to check your answers, resume the video. Okay, you guys are back, and I want you to check your answers. How did you do? Did you identify your 2 sets of linear pairs? Did you use all of the vocabulary words to prove? And if not, if you made a mistake somewhere, don't forget to write that down so we can talk about it later. And if you still have questions, go back and refer to a previous part of the video if that helps. Now here's example 2. So if you notice, I did not give you any of the statements. So basically you have to see what's given, see what I'm asking you to prove, and then your intersecting lines are over here to the right. And I want you to try it out and see how you do. Pause the video, and when you're ready to check your answers, resume the video. Okay, you guys are back. I hope you guys did well, and I hope you're understanding proofs a little bit better. They're not so bad. Now, what I would like you to do is to continue working on the homework examples, and this is one example that we will be talking about in class and discussing tomorrow. So make sure you complete the following proofs and be ready to discuss it in class. I hope you understand proofs better, and I hope that you understand the vertical angles theorems better.